I'm ready.
I'm calling the meeting to order at 5:00 PM. Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Bray?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Ms. Nasty? Mr. Rosa? Mr. Chavon? Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Ms. Walker?
Here.
And Chair Marcus?
Here,
Here.
we have a quorum, okay. We're now going to stand and pledge the allegiance to the flag. If everyone would stand, right in this corner. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, a nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So has everyone reviewed the minutes from last month's meeting? And does anyone have any changes or comments? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Shane. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Any persons who wish to speak today to the board must be sworn in, and the assistant city attorney will swear you in.
Deputy City Attorney. All those that are speaking, if you raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. When you approach the time that you speak, state your name for the record and whether or not you have this.
And they have 3 minutes, I believe?
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, each member of the public who wishes to speak on any item will have a length of time not to exceed 3 minutes. Representatives of associations will have 5 minutes. Okay, first, we're gonna call up agenda item number UDP HP 24022 209 Southwest 9th Avenue. Is represented, I'm sorry, Tricia, would you go ahead?
Would you like to do disclosures?
We'd like to do disclosures. Disclosures?
I've been by the property.
No,
I'm hearing by. No disclosure.
no disclosure.
So this item has 2 requests in it. It's a request for demolition of a 1-story single-family residence that's a contributing property in the Bend Historic District, and new construction of a 3-story, 2-family duplex residential structure with a yard reduction request. If the board's okay with it, we could just talk about the demolition request first and then proceed to the
Okay,
new construction. Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. So the demolition request is for the 1-story structure that's in the picture up there. It is a masonry vernacular single-family home that was constructed in 1924 and was identified as a contributing structure in the most recent architectural resource survey. The applicant is requesting complete demolition of this structure. So I'll read the summary as well.
please.
As far as the application, staff finds that the application for a POA for demolition under case number UDP HP 24022 located at 209 Southwest 9th Avenue does not meet the criteria outlined in section 47-2411 B3CI of the ULDR and does not meet the criteria outlined in section 47-2411 B4 of the ULDR and does not meet the criteria outlined in section 4717 of the ULDR. And there's a couple of conditions for the board's consideration that are listed on page 9 of the staff report. One, if the board chooses to make a motion for approval with conditions. One is the demolition of the structure shall not negatively impact properties within the historic district. And protection from construction debris and construction equipment shall be provided as necessary. 2, that this property is in an archaeologically significant zone. And conditions apply that are attached to the letter as part of the staff report. And 3, this application is subject to approval by building, zoning, and all of ULDR requirements.
Thank you. Is the applicant here or representative to speak? Please stand up here at the podium. And just first introduce yourself.
My name is Jasmine Collinger Miles. I bought this property like 4 or 5 years ago. And at the time, I did it as a rental. That didn't work out very well. And after that, I thought that, I saw other buildings going up, and then I thought, go ahead and do.
Could you speak up a little bit? I'm sorry.
Okay. I have a cold.
Okay, and the mask. That's okay. We appreciate you wearing the mask.
So I wanted to go ahead and renovate the building. The architect is here with me also, and he can give you more details better than I can, but my vision was he kind of captured what we needed to do. But of course, to demolish the property that is there now is very hard for me to do, but because that's, whenever the rain falls, it backs up into the property.
Oh,
It's been deteriorating no matter what, and that's what the tenants had a problem with, so
Sure.
they left, and I didn't think of anything else I could do, because in order to raise it, you have to do the foundation.
Right.
That's the flooding to come on in.
Exactly.
Demolition was something that I did not, I had to do, there's no way to go around that.
okay,
And, in front of you is the vision that I had this. 3 stories being in line with the other buildings that are 2 stories, but it's still in height of 35 feet, not past what they are. Mine is just because the property lot is small, I barely made it by, I think it's 5 feet.
We wanted to stick with the
Having-
demolition part.
yeah, let's stay with the demolition first, and then we'll move on to the new construction, okay?
So at this point, I can bring over the architect, he can check.
Please,
in that.
please.
Architect's name is Rohan.
And please introduce yourself.
Rohan Love, with the design of the,
Mhm.
well, actually, for the demo, the property is in a bad state, the building itself, roof is caving in and stuff like that. So that's why we choose to, instead of try to, add to it and do some, additions or modification, it would be,
Yeah.
the structure is not in a proper condition to put a second floor on it, so.
Okay.
That's why we choose to take it down.
Okay, thank you. And then you'll come back and talk about the proposed addition.
Yeah, question. Do you know, were you involved when the property was purchased?
No,
Do you know how long it's been vacant like this?
no. The owner was out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just asking that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Did you want the owner to answer that?
Unless there's somebody else to speak, yeah, I was interested in.
Could the owner answer Alan's question here? Just please come back. I'm sorry to make you walk all the way over. And what was your question, Alan?
So my question was, you said 4 or 5 years ago, you bought the property and you bought it with the intention to rent it.
Correct.
And how long was it rented?
I had a property manager, so maybe around 6 months or 7 months.
So it's been vacant like this for 4 years.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
With that, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak? Please stand up at the podium and introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Lisa Colon. I am a resident of, the president of the Waverly Court Townhome Associations. We are the property. If you look in that picture, you see the roof that's there.
Yes.
We're the property behind.
You're 213.
I'm we're 201.
Oh, 201, okay,
Yes.
the other way.
So I've purchased the property, I purchased unit 1 since 2018. When I purchased that, my property, that house was occupied by an elderly lady who had died in COVID. She died August of 2020. That property has been vacant since.
Okay,
There has been no rental, no one in that property since. The property is in disrepair and has been a haven for homeless and also illicit drug activity.
okay,
Okay, I'm here to strongly object to a 3-story townhouse.
can you hold the objection
Sure.
till we talk about the new
No problem.
construction? Because right now we want to go through the
Okay,
demolition?
so with regards to the demolition, we are very happy that the property owner is seeking to do something with the property. We just think what's proposed is inappropriate.
Okay,
Because that property is in severe disrepair. It has been abandoned since the previous owner has been in the property.
okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you.
So if there's no one from the public who wishes to speak, there is.
Do I give you guys this junk card or plug my left?
You have to introduce yourself again. I'm sorry.
Oh, I wanted to. Maggie Hunt, from Salem Oak. Yeah.
We have a photo show.
Photo show. Just a little bit, just a quick one, just some renovations in the area. I don't know if those are in order on my drive,
And this is regarding the demolition?
right, and renovation, that's in the, one that I've done, not here, but, and then two in that.
Okay,
Okay, so the first picture, when we get to it, is, the house that I bought when it was condemned. But the structural components were good. Inside was as bad as the outside. It's a 3,000 square foot house, was built in 1895, and I'll wait for the rest until.
so basically you're saying you don't want to see this demolished
Right,
because,
well, because I'm gonna show you some
Oh,
successful
okay.
renovations and some prices that somebody's asking for a renovation.
What was the first one?
The first one just says Court Street with no date after it. And then, I can't see, and then go to the close-up, the next one. And you can see, it's in pretty bad shape. Like I said, the inside was as bad as the out. And then go to the one with the date on it that shows it as it is today.
I wanted to point out one difference between this house and the subject house we're talking about. This house is elevated with a concrete wall above the ground, like 3-4 feet. The other one's on the ground.
Right, and so also this house is 3,000 square feet, so it's considerably bigger to renovate it. And there are also grants to elevate houses now. I think someone else in our neighborhood recently got one of those grants to elevate a historic house. So if I sold this and got the same price as that house would if it was finished, the one they're asking to demolish, I would make plenty of money. Okay, so then there's another house in Sailboat Bend. Do you see the other one that's not the Nininger house that is on that list?
Is this house, where's it located?
That house is in Iowa, but I'm just saying.
Oh, so,
I'm just saying, it's a big house, I redid it, and if you know what you're doing, it doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg or be prohibitive to redo them.
That's 800.
There you go, 800. So this is a house that was very recently purchased and redone, and it looks great.
In Sailboat Bend?
It's a small house, yeah, and I don't think they did elevate it, but they recently were asking quite a bit for it. Now, if you go to the next house, that's Nininger house, this house is actually was the house that supposedly that Sandy Nininger. You can see on Zillow what they're asking for that house now, and it's beautiful inside if you go on Zillow and look. But I'm just, even if you take 30% off of that, if they're asking too much, that's still quite a nice amount to get for a house. So, you know, as it's been stated, the owner purchased this property that they want demolished 4 years ago. And they didn't do anything but let it deteriorate it. And interestingly enough, this is what developers do as a matter of course when they want to get permission to demolish a historic site. It happens every day all over the United States and here in Sailboat Bend. And that's why that we want to put this master plan together to help do some things to hopefully help stop it. And we just had a get together with Tricia and the consulting company that's going to do the vision plan. And if we let these houses get demolished, we will not have an historic neighborhood to the master plan for to turn into something that actually looks like a historic neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other comment, we'll close the public hearing and open it up to board discussion. Richard, how about we ask you to start?
Okay. I actually have done a historic home in Fort Lauderdale and Sailboat Bend. And we have gutted the interior to improve it, so that type of thing is possible. My question for you is, have you considered elevating it? It's a concrete structure, but it can be elevated. So I don't know who you have as a owner or
The architect, I guess.
architect might be able to answer that, if it's been evaluated for elevating it for future flooding, because you brought that up as an issue.
We're calling you.
Doug, the architect office. Okay, what happened is, the existing house there, it is only 900 square foot. So in order to do anything, to do any modification, we'll have to probably tear it down, and it sits center in on the property. So to do something substantial or something makes sense, we'll have to probably knock down 3 walls and keep 1 wall, which it would be the same as knocking down the building. So that's why we chose to take it down.
Okay, do you know more information about concrete structures and elevating them?
I don't.
Okay.
That's a
There's-
specialty.
Because I think that this board and the city can do more to encourage incentives for property owners. This is an over 5,000 square foot lot, and the house is 753 square feet, which for many people, that would be a guest house. And so it's like changing some of the guidelines or rules for us to allow properties to have a slightly larger guest house or adaptive or with the ADUs for smaller structures on properties. And obviously the variances on setbacks and those kind of issues. Also to have mixed use, this could be an office building on the property, private office for somebody on the property, so it could be a mixed use
Not in
with
a
tax.
not in a residential zone.
And we can do that with zoning, we'll talk about that later, but they are acceptable in this district at this point with conditions. And so we can address that again from our perspective as a board with the city's input, but I don't fault the owner for wanting to make the best use of it with the investment, but whenever you have historic properties, they are a cost, and you were aware this was a historic district when you bought the property, correct? Correct, because it's listed on all the property, Broward County property,
You're speaking to the architect, so he did not purchase the.
Yeah.
property.
the owners here.
No,
You
wait a
can't
second.
speak for the, you can't speak for the owner.
Okay.
So if that's the case, then you were aware that there's an investment in preserving and restoring historic properties. So the costs, I don't think is necessarily the issue, but the concern being it's like with the flooding, whether it's viable to actually elevate a cinder block building of this nature. Because that is continuing a problem, is the water rising in the community and that there is no way to fix that if you can't able to legitimately elevate it.
Okay. Thank you. Ashley?
I don't have anything right now. I'm just
Okay.
absorbing,
Okay,
but would like to come back if I do.
we
think
will.
it's okay.
Sharon?
Yeah, I. For the most part agree with Richard's comments, especially on the flooding, which I'm sympathetic to. That's all I got.
Okay.
I'm sympathetic with the staff's report and their recommendation,
Okay,
and so I oppose the demolition.
all right, as I've taken stands in the past, I'm sort of a contrarian today, that well, two reasons. I think it's gonna be really difficult to move this. But more than that, I don't think this house rises to the level of the design standards that most houses in Sailboat Bend that are considered historic rise to. I don't see any distinguishing features on the front except for the covered porch. Now, things that may have been changed, there were probably shutters on the window, and I'm sure it could be fixed up to make it look a little more attractive, but as I mentioned earlier, it does sit right on the ground, so it would have to be raised, and it would have to be raised because of the South Florida Building Code. So that's my rationale. I mean, I'm looking at this a little bit differently, but I feel there's a standard of design in Sailboat Bend, and I've always been of the opinion that just because it's old, it doesn't make it worthwhile to be saved. So that's where I stand.
Now, I think with the
So-
FEMA, that you wouldn't have to raise it if it's a contributing property. So that your requirement is not valid in this.
Yeah,
case.
but I wouldn't move into a
Of
house like
course,
that.
of course, and that
Yeah.
was the point I'm making,
Yeah.
is that you'd want to elevate it, and I don't know with a cinder block house like this. If
I don't
it's
know how feasible,
practical,
yeah,
that you can do it, even if it's a cost, because if you're cracking all the walls,
right.
you're gonna be a destructive, and
Usually
that's
they
the way
move-
too. The
Wha-
ceiling is already, or the roof is already gonna need to be replaced, which is again, cost of anybody's property in Florida, that you have to regularly replace or improve the roofs, so.
What did the pictures look like 4 years ago?
Well, we often had, I mean, I lived in the neighborhood for a while, so I've often seen the elderly lady that lived there sitting out in the front porch, and so it's a quaint little house that does show a character, the essence of what Sailboat Bend was during the period of significance. So it does have relevance in the quality or the character of the house anyway, not necessarily in the quality that exists today. And that's the problem, is that does it really have the ability to preserve what's there?
Do we have any pictures of what it looked like before?
I mean, I have probably a photo from a previous survey
Oh, okay.
that was.
I mean, do you have a picture from the survey that was done that's online?
Yeah,
Because I think that you have it listed as one of the contributing properties, and the picture might be a little better than this one that they're showing. But I guess what I'm trying to, frustrating for me, is trying to figure out, how can we preserve it if it's still gonna be in this level of the ground? You have to elevate it, otherwise it's not gonna last any longer anyway. Even if you make improvements, you're just gonna have the same problems. So unless you're able to elevate the structure, then it doesn't make sense to preserve it, in my opinion.
Well, you have to, I think you'd want to elevate it whether you have to or not.
But what we talked about before, made
Yeah.
a recommendation of, is moving some of these horses to like the city of Fort Lauderdale designated lot. So if you're moving it, you're gonna have an opportunity to elevate it. So that's an
a good- That's a
opportunity,
good idea, but this is not what we're
of course,
looking
and
at.
so it is making recommendations to the potential applicant to consider those if there is an opportunity to preserve it, to donate to the city so that they can move it to a location and preserve it for the character of the community. But again, I don't know if the structure is viable, and that's why I'm asking.
So you're asking her to contribute the house rather than get $1 million for it?
Well, no, because you're asking to demo it.
I know,
So
I
if
know.
you're demoing it,
The
the alternative is to donate the structure so that it can be moved and preserved. But because it'd have to be elevated to move it.
Is it
anyway.
worthwhile moving?
They are.
I don't know.
What, I have a question for Trisha. Trisha, what about this property makes it contributing?
So there's defining characteristics that were outlined within the survey, and those are repeated.
Where are they in the staff?
Yeah,
report?
that's it.
I didn't see that.
They are repeated.
You've got it stated as
Oh.
utilizes readily available building materials and employs traditional architectural arrangements up and through there. They exhibit the masonry vernacular architectural style, so.
It's the last sentence of the bottom of page 4. Where it talks about.
In
the-
summary,
the character defining features. And it says the existing features of the structure conform to the guidelines, including
Yeah.
flat roof, a shade parapet, and a porch which extends outward, supported by rectangular piers with a decorative capitol.
So you're saying this, but you approved it for.
Well, so as part of the evaluation of the Sailboat Bend Architectural Resource Survey, we were looking at the deed, architectural integrity, the, the character defining features that were found on the structures when we were performing the research.
And what are the character?
On the bottom of page 4,
Right,
last sentence, they're outlined.
page 4?
Yeah.
Are you calling the shaped parapet the one step up in the front?
well, it's on both sides, so it's mirrored on left. and
Oh,
right.
I see that now.
And remember, Sailboat Bend is significant for a working class neighborhood,
Right,
for vernacular style architecture. And it's not a high style architectural neighborhood necessarily, it's.
but most houses have defining characteristics that I think contribute to the visual continuity of the neighborhood. I know I'm dissenting here, but I'm the only one who feels this way.
Well, I'm struggling. I mean, I think part of it is because of the condition of the property. I mean, I'm like, it is in very, very poor condition, and the irony of us having this conversation about a property that's in a flood zone today is not lost on me.
Mhm.
And that we're not even sure how you would even physically lift a property like this, and I asked about the features that contribute to it being a historic property, because it does not look like a historic property, even if it was, to me, even with some repair, it just still. So I'm struggling with this, although I respect the staff report and the opinion of the staff professionals. This one is a hard one for me, because the condition of the property is in complete
Right.
to even get it to anywhere, I can't believe somebody was living in it 4 years ago.
Mhm.
I think it was totally different. These pictures are not representative of what the person lived in 4 years ago. This is purposeful, willful neglect for the purposes of this. Tear it down, demo it, put up something bigger. So we're the Historic Preservation Board. We demolish this. It's totally contrary to what we're here for, in my opinion.
I mean, ideally, I would like to see it elevated and moved to a side part of the property, and the rest of the lot be given more flexibility to build something that's more appropriate for an investment for these particular people. I mean, without destroying the existing thing, but work around it so that we can still preserve what's there. But because the character of the house is there, and that's what Trish is talking about. It's a vernacular house. It didn't have the elaborate style that you may have had. It was a simple house, 750 square feet. It had the parapet, had the front porch. It had characteristics that were of value that historic Sailboat Bend is known for. But because of the question of elevating it, it's continuing to flood, is my biggest concern, that you're not going to really have that value retained, even if you restore what's the way it is.
I echo your sentiment, though, that we should be cautious of rewarding people who neglect
Neglect, yeah.
properties such that it gets to a state and this disarray. But I don't think that we can forget about the flooding issue, which in my opinion would supersede some of the other issues here.
So this photo is probably from 2018, 2019.
I mean, that's not much better.
I know.
But when I moved in the area in 2004, it was not that bad, but of course, she was elderly, so, of course, maintenance.
Well,
was-
it's certainly a vernacular structure, and I know they're not noted for detailing. I just question whether this is the right one to make a stand on. Any other comments? Tricia? No,
No.
Okay.
I don't have any other comments.
if no other comments, then does someone have a motion?
With help, I would move to concur with the staff report and not allow the demolition.
Is there a second?
So to clarify, the request here is for a certificate of appropriateness for demolition.
Right.
So you're either approving or denying it, so you're denying granting the certificate of appropriateness.
Yes.
Yes. If there's a second.
Since there's no second, then I'm open to another motion. I can't make the motion, so. I leave it to you all.
Sorry, I'm looking in the staff report for the
Sure.
cheat sheet. Right. I like the
Just
cheat
wanted
sheet.
to-
Tricia.
Yeah, that's why it's there.
I will make a motion to approve a COA for demolition under case number UDP HP 24022 located at 209 Southwest 9th Street. As it does meet the criteria for demolition as discussed here in the meeting today on the current conditions and the facts, some of the supporting facts outlined in the staff report. Is that sufficient?
Well, the staff report does not.
Yeah.
But doesn't some of it
No,
does say,
Because all those
because,
are
well, but there are places where it says,
not for demolition.
For demolition does not
Okay.
relate back to the condition of the structure.
okay. So I would say, as the testimony that was presented today, based on the testimony presented today. With the conditions to be with the conditions that the demolition of the structure shall not negatively impact the properties. And protection from construction debris and construction equipment shall be provided. And that contingent on the archaeological, that since it's located in archaeological significant zone in phase 1 archaeological study, that monitoring of all ground disturbing work by a qualified professional is required. And that the application is subject to approval by the building zoning and all ULDR requirements.
We get it all?
So just 2 and 4, not 1
Is
and
there
3,
a second?
What, no,
the condition.
The condition.
well, there was 3 conditions, that this condition 1 is that the demolition of the structure shall not negatively impact properties. The second was the archaeological significant zone, and the third is subject to approval by building and zoning.
So you're not including the glass, number 1?
That's for.
Where-
Oh, different. Oh, sorry.
Okay,
I'm in the wrong list.
okay.
Second motion.
Seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
No. The motion carries. So now we will hear about the proposed design, if you want to talk about it a little bit, because we've only seen the picture.
Jerry, could you put the presentation back?
The new construction.
Chair, would you like the staff report?
Yes,
So the proposal for the new construction project is a 2-family duplex style residential structure that is 3 stories in height to a total height of 35 feet. The primary facade would still maintain its frontage along Southwest 9th Avenue and features a roof concrete porch that would encroach into the front yard, and the applicant is requesting a yard reduction of a reduction of 10 feet, which would have the front setback be at 15 feet. And that is permitted through the Sailboat Bend section of the code 4717.
what are the neighboring houses? You
Is
know?
So
is that also true if it's no longer contributing? I thought it was only for contributing properties.
it is allowed in the Sailboat Bend section for all structures. And it has been permitted for new construction to align with the historic structures that it's abutting.
So my question was, what's the setback on the
So the-
neighboring
Yeah,
structures?
property to the south is, it's actually a little less than 15 feet. But the maximum that can be granted by the Historic Preservation Board is 15.
Okay,
It's like it's a couple feet denied that. And then
Okay.
the property to the north is the townhome, and then approximately 25 feet setback, but there's a large driveway in
right.
between the structure that is proposed and the townhouses, or the front of the townhouse.
Okay.
So the structure itself, it really is a flat frontage beyond the porch, rising up to the 3 stories, the 35 feet, and has very little articulation within the facade. I'm gonna go to the general criteria where the application is found to partially meet the criteria as far as the effect of the proposed work on the landmark, the property in which the work is to be done. The new construction is 3 stories in height, and it's found that the overall massing, size, and scale is incompatible with the immediate surroundings. There's not a lot of variation in the height level and architectural details that create a monolithic appearance in the facade.
There is or isn't?
There is not. Yeah. And then the second criteria, the general criteria does not meet it. The relationship between such work and other structures on the landmark site or other properties within the historic district. Again, the massing, size, and scale of the structure is not compatible with its immediate surroundings. And the other criteria is related to the fact that it does require demolition of a contributing structure. Criteria for new construction, within this section of the code, it goes through various aspects of the new design. The first is the height of the proposed building shall be visually compatible with the adjacent building. And this does not meet the criterion due to the massing.
What are the neighboring buildings?
So the building to the south is a one-story.
Can we see the
contributing
plots?
structure.
Of the previous slide,
Yeah,
so like the
Yeah, the
buildings
map.
behind it are
You're talking 213?
to the
So
left.
213 to the south is a one-story
Right.
contributing structure. It's a wood frame vernacular home.
Oh, great.
And then 201 that surrounds this property is a townhouse development that's 2 stories in height. Across the street are all 1-story structures.
Are the two-story heights still 35 feet? What's the height difference between, because those are relatively tall townhouses, so do we know what the height is of the?
I'm not.
If you go to the last page of the plan set, it looks to be somewhat.
Yeah, the street elevation. On the last page. It looks like 2.5 stories, the total height on the one to the right.
And this
Okay.
street frontage would be mostly relatable to the property to the south, the 213. Which is immediately abutting.
Oh, what
Wait,
about
can
the,
you say that again?
This structure in particular will be most visually related to the structure to the south, which is 213 Southwest Times Avenue. It's a 1-story contributing frame vernacular home. And they would sit right next door to each other without much separation.
what about the 201 townhouses?
And then the townhouses, there is a driveway in between the.
How
the
tall are
structure to the
they?
north. They're 2-story.
Okay.
townhomes. They do have a lot of articulation in the facade, which does relieve the appearance of any additional height.
Okay,
Trisha, the last page on the plans here.
Mhm.
Is this smaller structure on the left supposed to reflect 213?
Yes,
yes,
And then the townhouse
it's 201.
is 201, and is it all of 201? So it's basically
It's an L
two
shape.
there's
sides.
several structures that
Yeah,
are
it-
connected around it.
So all of
It's like
the things that are marked 201 are this size.
Right.
Okay, okay, all right. I just want to make sure I understood that.
Go
It's
ahead.
like an L-shaped building.
Yeah.
Right,
Right, I got you.
just so we
Okay,
understood.
yeah,
The house.
okay.
The the next criterion, the relationship of the width of the building to the height of the front elevation shall be visually compatible to the building places which it is visually related. This was found to not meet the criterion. The height ratio appears to be visually incompatible to the buildings and places in which it's related. I'll primarily point out what is not meeting the criterion. The relationship of solids to voids in the front facade, the size and style of the windows are compatible with those found within the neighborhood. They are proposing
Explain your comment about solids and voids so everyone understands it.
so solids and voids are talking about wall, the plane of the wall versus any openings within the wall surface. So it's how many window openings you have, the size of them, and comparable to the scale of the overall building.
Right.
So, while we have single hung windows found throughout the neighborhood, the placement and the size of the windows isn't providing additional articulation or enhancement of the facade as it relates to the street frontage.
Okay,
And then the size of the building, the mass of the building in relation to the open spaces. The window and door openings, porches and balconies shall be visually compatible with the building and places to which it is visually related. This was found to not meet the criterion, mostly related to the overall massing of the new construction. And finally, in this section of the code, a building shall be visually compatible with the buildings and places to which it is visually related and its directional character, whether it be vertical or horizontal. Immediately adjacent, there's 3 single-family homes that are all more horizontal in nature. This is much more vertical in the design. As far as the material and design guidelines are concerned, it does meet the criteria for the most part. as they are using materials that are found within this section of the code. And then for the yard reduction, it was found that it does meet the criteria for that as well, since the neighboring property to the south, which is its most visual related property along the street frontage, it would be more in line and in keeping with that structure. As discussed previously, this building is within a flood zone, so it's something that would be needed to be incorporated into this building and would probably increase the height.
Yeah.
Once constructed, the architect or engineer in this case,
The first
not-
floor doesn't look high enough.
right, they did not incorporate any additional height into
Yeah.
their design to show that it would be increased beyond that 35 feet, so it'd be even taller than what they're showing in the plan. And then I'll read the summary conclusion. The staff finds that the application for a COA for new construction under case number UDP-HP 24022. Located at 209 Southwest 9th Avenue, partially meets the criteria as outlined in section 472411 D3CI of the ULDR. Partially meets the criteria as outlined in section 472411 III of the ULDR, and meets the criteria outlined in section 4717 of the ULDR. There are 4 conditions that are outlined for the consideration of the board on page 10 of the staff report. The first is all glass shall be clear with an option of low E coating. 2, that it's in an archaeologically significant zone. And 3, the property is located in a flood zone. And additional features to accommodate an elevated height of the structure may be needed to be incorporated. If modifications are made to the proposed design that alter the appearance of the structure, the applicant may need to return to the HPB for review of updated plans. And 4, this application is subject to the city's zoning requirements, floodplain management regulations, and chapter 14 of the city of Fort Lauderdale Code of Ordinances and all other ULDR requirements. This application is also subject to the approval of the city's building services division.
Thank you.
That's it.
Please.
Good evening again, Rohan Love, for the record. First, thanks for the approval for the demo. And, the intent for this new proposed structure, because of the large size, is at 75 feet in depth. So in order to put something proper on the property, we choose to, that's why we have to choose the 3 stories.
Okay,
Okay, so the first floor has a garage and a bedroom, and the second floor, the living area, and the third floor, the bedroom area.
what is the function of the setback for the third floor?
Because it has to meet 25 feet, 22 feet from the property.
For the second floor?
Yeah,
The visuals and stuff.
Okay. Okay,
so that's why we have to do that setback.
and perhaps you might address the comments from the staff report, whether you agree with them or disagree with them.
Well, basically, I'm here to work with, I have to get, we need to get this thing approved, so
Right.
whatever recommendation you guys make, we adapt, conform and try the best to meet you guys. But, we're trying to improve the property,
Right.
and, the footprint of the building is really small. So, in order that we have 3 stories, that's why we're proposing a 3-story.
Okay.
And with regards to, the neighboring, the townhouse on the north section, it has, from, I think it's about 30 feet. So the proposed building comparing to the townhouse, the townhouse has a steep pitch. So from floor to the top of the roof, our building, the 3 floor is not much different. It's probably a 5 feet different, because if you notice, the roof pitch on the proposed building is a 312, which is pretty much flat
Right,
to accommodate the 35 feet.
okay,
So, I mean, whatever adjustment we need to make to make this thing work, we
you will do that, okay. All right, I'm sure the board will have questions and comments as we go through. So just stay there if you would. Why don't we start with Alan? I'm sorry, but public comment?
Yeah.
Well, no, wait, you have to get up and speak. I'm sorry. I didn't see you there.
Hi, again, Lisa Colon. I am the president of the Waverly Port Townhome Association. And we strongly object to the proposed structure. Do you mind going to see S1 of the plans, the first, I think it's the first page of the plan, so I can explain.
Do we have that one?
We don't have the whole plan.
No.
Okay, they have it in front. Okay. Oh, you have it in front of?
It's there.
Who's talking about this page?
It's CS1.
Yep.
Okay, on the top of C. The L shape structure. So on the curve, you get into our property by, right on the curve. We are right on that particular curve. That's our driveway. And then the L shape is a courtyard, right? So that's how the cars get into their respective garages. Our property has bedrooms that face the courtyard, and those bedrooms have balconies. If a so I want to also direct your attention to the last page, which shows the proposed height elevations. That's sheet A 3.4 of the plans. As you can see, the structure that they're proposing is significantly higher. The back of that property will overshadow our courtyard, and then we would have no light. We would have no natural sunlight anymore flowing through our property. Our balconies will be looking right directly into the second story of that property, or maybe between the second and third story of that property. When we I purchased my home in 2018. I think my neighbors are here. We just sold one of the units. I think everybody in our community had a reasonable expectation when we purchased our property that we will be able to enjoy our balcony and our courtyard. This proposal here takes away that enjoyment from us. It will leave us in the shadow, basically. We will have no natural sunlight. So at least, at a minimum, a sunlight study should be done to see how it affects our property.
Unfortunately, the law doesn't protect your view.
No, I know
Yeah.
I know our view isn't, but I think the enjoyment of our property is protected. Right? We will significantly be overshadowed. Our property will significantly decrease in property value because we're basically a shadow behind a building. We didn't buy a condominium where you have a reasonable expectation that the lot next to you would be a condominium. Right, we bought in a historic neighborhood that had a one-story house in front of us. And it was a contributing historic house. We knew we were buying in a historic district. So I think our reasonable expectation is we want the property to be improved. It is a nuisance, right? It is in disrepair. But I think a 3-story property is unreasonable. Right, the property should remain at least the same height that it is. There can be, the property owner can build housing to be resold at a 1-story height, as is the properties to the east, across the street from it, are all 1-story multi-family homes. Right, to have this structure in front of our home significantly reduces our property. We will just be behind the building.
Thank you. Anyone else, please?
Rachel Clardy. I have been sworn in. I live at 201 Lauderdale. Lisa is my neighbor. So I bought the house at the height of COVID, April of 2020. The cat house, which is the property you approved for demolition, as we called it, was occupied when I moved in. The owner would say, "Do you have a 6-shooter to go with that mask?" As I walked by her house, she had about 20 cats, I think. She should have been designated as a historical person. Honestly, she should have. She was so full of stories of the history of Sailboat Bend. So she passed on and her home was sold. The home has sat there for several years, 4 years probably. Once in a while, someone comes by, mows it, a sign goes off, do not trespass, etc. It looks bereft of care. We would sit in our balcony during COVID, look over at the cats on the roof and listen to the sounds drifting from the outdoor concerts. Remember, they used to have that at the Performing Arts Center. Of course, we want something done. Absolutely. We want this vacant, dilapidated home that remained vacant for 4 years, replaced by something, yes, more attractive. I'm not naive. We believe that the house, I don't believe the house should stand as it is. Someone made an investment. I appreciate that. But I also made an investment. And I am committed to the Sailboat Bend neighborhood. I play pickleball at the Salvation Army right around the corner. I think someone here does also. I frequent the Performing Arts Center. I go to Fat Cats. I used to go to the Pancake House before they shut it down. I'm so disappointed. I'm invested financially, emotionally to my Sailboat Bend neighborhood. So I understand about the shortage of housing. Our compromise won't affect that. I truly believe that matching the neighborhood aesthetic, it's a fair rule. First and foremost, this proposal is too large for us. The surrounding trees, which are beautiful to look at, they would have to be sacrificed. The edges would be so close to our property. There's a pool back there, right? Did I see that in the building? I don't understand. That even brings the edges closer. Yes, the proposals of this nature probably have gone up in the past, but just because it happened in the past doesn't mean it should continue. I'm asking the developer in good faith to come up with something more in keeping with our neighborhood. To be a good neighbor to the Sailboat Bend community, a community that I really personally, I love this community. And I don't want it to turn into, and I'm sorry if there's anybody here from Flagler, but have you seen what is going on in Flagler? Some people love that. I don't. That's why I chose Sailboat Bend and the historic neighborhood. Someone visited me and they said to me, wow, you look a lot like Key West here. I said, no, we look like Sailboat Bend. So please help us keep our Sailboat Bendness in place. I
Thank you.
appreciate you listening to me. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Please.
Yeah, I agree.
You have to introduce yourself
Again,
again.
okay. Maggie Hunt from Civil. I agree with the other speakers that this is not in keeping with our historic district. With the, like Tricia said, with the front of the house, it's all in the same plane. The solids and the voids, the windows are too small, the openings. There's nothing that about that articulates anything that looks similar with the history. This looks like something you would put in a really, in a place where people could not afford to build anything. It just looks like it's done very cheaply. And I believe our zoning only provides for 2 stories. Maybe they're going to the zoning board, but just based on that, it's 3 stories. I don't believe that's on.
Tricia?
They can go up to 35 feet and they have to comply with, it's 1 foot setback for each additional foot of height over 21 feet, 22 feet.
So that's the reason for the setback.
Yeah, so they have a larger side setback and they do comply with what
Okay.
is
But
required.
it would be really sad for this to be the norm. Most of the overwhelming number of historic houses are only 1 story tall and they have much more yard around them. So I hope we're not gonna make this the norm, that it takes up so much of the lot, like Victoria Park. I'm sure if you've been here a long time, you know what Victoria Park used to look like, and now what it looks like with townhomes and duplexes like this that go edge to edge. And I'm so grateful that we're a historic district, because I would hope that we wouldn't have this. It's gonna overshadow, and pretty soon, all the historic houses, and pretty soon it's gonna look like we're about 3-story townhomes and not about it's the historic look of the historic district. Thanks.
Thank you. And I just want to clarify something with Tricia. In the past, we've approved housing like this, where it's like twin homes, or whatever we call it, duplex. I'm from Philadelphia, it was a twin home. And Typically, they've been 3 stories,
They've been two.
2 stories. Okay, I wanted to verify that.
I don't recall any
I don't
three
recall.
stories that have
Okay.
come.
Well, there are
before.
quite a
trying
few
to remember.
townhouses that are 3-story,
Right.
but none that are very few. There are that are 3 stories that are duplexes or single family homes like
Okay.
that.
And there was a recent update to the, well, somewhat recent update in 2017 to the ordinance that controls the design of a duplex, 2-family home or townhome or cluster development that does try to lead in the direction of more definition within the facade and more movement
Okay,
within the facade as well. So
well, we'll open it up to the board now and we can talk about that.
So just one point of clarification, you're saying that with the height and the setback that this is,
it complies with the ULDR
and
and regulations. There are other townhomes and duplexes that were built prior to 2017 that are, sometimes looked at as an example, but they do not comply with today's regulations.
And
So-
2017 is the date because,
It's when the new ordinance was adopted.
okay, sorry,
It's
Ashley.
And in the past, when we've had 2-story buildings, I feel like that there has not been as much staff comments on the massing. Am I remembering that? So is the massing issue because this does have that third?
a lot of the other projects that have come in recent years do employ more movement within the facade, so they don't have as much weight on the front elevation, and they push back the second floor and then have more definition through the roof line. It's within historic preservation, having duplexes isn't ideal, but we have had some solutions come in that do incorporate more architectural features than this one can do show more movement within the facade to help relieve the size of and scale of the structure that's coming in place typically next to 1-story single family homes.
I think that there's at least one building that's like a block or so away that is an apartment complex that is 2 stories, but that is probably 15 units in it. That's across the street from Dave Parker's house. If you're his house before he passed away, but yeah, that was a 2-story building that was in the neighborhood that had multi-residents in it, but they're few and far between that were ever 2 stories that were built with a period of significance. Most of them are, single story.
So, you wanna continue?
With
Yeah,
the conversation about this yet?
Okay. I think that no one from the public has any comments, then we'll go to board comments. Alan, why don't we start with you this time?
It's so kind of you.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful looking house, a lot of great work that's gone into that. I guess elevated to take care of the flooding. It just does not look like Sailboat Bend to me, doesn't look like. So I would see in a historic district, so I would be opposed.
Do you have any, okay,
Movement in the facade, it would be hard for me. I'd like to see the picture of what that maybe.
I'll
you could-
let me address
yeah.
that. Ashley,
I traditionally understand the struggle that we have with, trying to preserve history, and I, in the past, have been supportive of some of the new developments. I think that this has a different distinction for me because the 3 stories and the massing is throwing me off a bit, especially up against the 1-story house. And while I agree with the chairman that, you don't have a right to a view and, to what you thought you purchased, I do think my kind of concern comes more from a place of how does it fit and scale with the other surrounding area, and this seems just a little bit too much. I think had this been a two-story property like we've seen and come before, it would be very consistent with, I would have supported something like this, especially because we approved the demolition. And so it kind of would be natural to support having something built there. I am, I'm still gonna listen to comments from my fellow board members, but I am struggling with the massing and the 3 stories and approving something at 3 stories because it's not consistent with what we have approved, and it feels a little bit too much for the neighborhood, and it is not consistent per the staff report. So that's, and then Trisha's comments that once we even go through the process with the city, this is gonna be even higher because it's not gonna meet flooding, the regulations as it relates to flooding. And we don't even know what that is, what that's gonna do to height. So I'm still listening to the board and
Okay.
making up a decision, but I do have concerns about the massing and the height.
Sure.
I share similar concerns with massing. I was in favor of the demolition because of the flooding, and I'd like to see the site plans take that into account. What the height would be. Given proper elevation to avoid flooding issues. I think 3 stories is inconsistent with the neighborhood. And it wouldn't look right, especially with the 1-story home next door. So I'm not in favor of approving this one.
Richard. Yeah, I think it gives a better feel of more of even though Sailboat Bend is close to downtown and it is considered, I guess, more urban, it gives more of that urban feeling because it is massed for the size of the lot. So I think it's an inappropriate structure for this location. I mean, it has no landscaping, no trees, it has taken up more airspace, if you want to say, compared to the adjoining properties. I think the design is flawed, and I don't like the way it's being presented as something replacing what was just approved for demolition. So it doesn't have the character, I think, of the Sailboat Bend, and it doesn't kind of feel appropriate as a replacement.
I'm also generally not in favor of the duplexes to replace a single family home, but understand that it's not necessarily a rule, but yes, that's keeping it compatible with the neighborhood.
But you could have duplexes with the first floor being a 1 unit and the second floor being a second unit and not necessarily taking up the type of mass. So there's different ways of designing something that might be a different layout than what they perceived, but I just don't think that this is an appropriate representation of what should be there.
So as an architect, I have comments too. And I know the board hates it when I make design suggestions, but I really think that this is the time to help you think about what you want to do with this house, you and the owner. I have to agree with everyone that the front of the house looks too forbidding. The windows look very small in relationship to the blank walls. And there seems to be, as Tricia has said, too much of a percentage of the blank walls in front. Maybe it involves making, instead of a 2-bay window, a 3-bay window. Maybe some of the windows change shape a little bit, but it's not following, as some of the other board members have said, the kinds of design characteristics that are so prevalent in this historic neighborhood. I'm not saying to copy everything, but there's a lot of inspiration around the neighborhood. And I think you could find that here in addition to the comments in the staff report. So the proportion of windows to the blank walls, I think, could be improved. I don't know what Richard's suggestion would be about a unit upstairs and a unit downstairs. That's certainly your prerogative and the owners in terms of the program for the house. The setback on the second floor looks a little arbitrary. I know why you've done it, but maybe it should be more pronounced, so it becomes a porch. Somewhere to sit out or something. But if the third floor were recessed, maybe on one or two sides, perhaps that might help to alleviate the concerns of the neighboring townhouses. I can't answer for them, but I'm just saying it's something to take a look at and see. The other, just a picky little thing. I see the front door in the proposed street profile, and in the book here it looks like it's the same horizontal material. So here it's shown as a glass panel door, which I don't think you want all that people looking in like that. So just take a look at that and see which you prefer. That's all. I think, especially with the fact that the house will need to be raised. We don't know what the flood elevation is and how much you'd have to raise it. But I think in order for us to make an accurate decision, we need some accurate drawings. So I mean, I think we'd like to see the impact that that has and the impact of all the comments that you've heard today, and to see what you can come up with.
Well, just a question then, is this like showing at current ground level for the drawings? It's not representing the elevation for FEMA at this point, because
No,
it is 5 to 6 feet higher, so then the building is, you still have that 35 feet that you can still build above it, so it's gonna be 40 feet high. It's even gonna be higher than what they've got it represented as. That's even a greater concern.
okay. Well, they understand that. So are there any other board comments? Questions? Someone would like to make a motion?
Are you suggesting a deferral or a motion for approval or denial?
I would do whatever does not cost the owner undue monies. Which would
Should
that
we
be?
ask the homeowner if they
Well,
would consider?
let's ask
taking-
Tricia first.
The question
I'm
is,
sorry, but
if we deny it,
yeah,
they can still come back with another proposal in the future for something different. It's just this particular proposal.
so would they have to pay to come back again?
No, we don't have an application fee for new construction,
Okay,
residential new construction.
so you still need someone to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to deny the resolution for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction with a yard reduction under case number UDP HP 24022 located at 209 Southwest 9th Avenue. Based on the findings of facts and based on the facts and findings as outlined in the staff memorandum and it's not subject to any,
The discussions.
yeah, it's based on the discussions.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. I hope you understand why we're saying what we're saying, so I hope you are able to take the words to heart and have some good conversations with your client. Okay? So I guess, do they have to decide when they will come back or not? Not at this point.
They would need to reapply
Okay,
for,
I'm saying this for their benefit, so tell them. Okay,
reapply for a future meeting.
I think there's a commission appeal.
thank you.
No, they can not do that, we defer, and we're here because we denied it. They could fill those commission. Yes.
Thank you.
Commissions.
And hold on a second, I have too much paper here. This is
We get the meeting here.
209, I'm sorry, wait, let's. Just a moment. Does somebody have the agenda? I don't have
I
it.
do.
in front of me. Thank you. So that is the only agenda item we have. So now we're talking about communication to the city commission? Tricia, do you wanna?
Well, there was a communication that was placed on the city commission agenda a few weeks ago, and Richard Gray was there to represent the HPV, but the city commission did not have discussion
Mhm.
either item, and it was about the police station property as well as the Broward Addiction Recovery Center site.
The second site,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, exactly. So the communications were received by the city commission, but they did not really open it up for discussion.
I had given him a handout, so I think that
Yes.
provided sufficient information for them.
Is it to be recalled at another time?
No, they didn't make any further comment.
Okay. And this was the communication about hiring a,
That was the communication. One part was for the police station site and potentially moving structures
right,
to that location. On the, on the opposite side of the parcel. The actual police station.
right,
And then there's another site in the center of
Right.
the historic district that's behind the Kennedy homes. That the board made a communication about gardens, community gardens.
okay. So then the next item is our meeting dates. You have
Yes.
some
So
questions
we
about
have
that.
a meeting date handout. For the switch lines here.
Where'd he go?
The absence
Okay,
of
you get to
Gary.
do everything.
Maybe.
One with many talents.
Let's see. Okay.
Yep.
And these are for the 2025 calendar year. So it's our typical Monday, first Monday of every month. Except September, which would be the second Monday. Which seemed to work okay this year. Because of the.
We have
Labor
a
Day.
quorum.
So we would need a motion to adopt this calendar, so then we would have it official.
Motion to adopt the calendar as presented.
Great. Second, all in favor? Aye, opposed? The motion carries. Our calendar for next year. And then our next item is review of proposed ordinance updates for two unified land development regulations, Article 12, transfer of development rights. And Tricia, this is,
So
you're on.
yeah, so this item was on the agenda last month. It was deferred by the board. I did forward an email earlier today from Mr. Adams.
Right.
Describing some suggestions that he had, but also asking for another deferral. For additional time for review and discussion. At the last meeting, the board asked for an example from the city of Miami, as far as their process and maybe a building that had transferred their development rights to another. And I wasn't quite sure what you were looking for, so this is an example of a transfer from one historic property, which is on Biscayne Boulevard. And at the time, when this was done, it was really only the ability to transfer square footage, which equates to height. And so this is the property that it came from. So there was a calculation of how much additional square footage that this property would qualify for. In this case, the properties on Biscayne Boulevard qualify for a multiplier because they have a height limitation placed on them for the ordinance.
It's in a historic district,
It's in a
isn't it?
historic district.
Yes.
Yeah, so they qualify for several 100,000 square feet to transfer. In this case, they transferred 150,000 square feet. This is just an overview of what the property looks like and the height limits. And they transferred to a new development in Coconut Grove, which is very far away from this.
It's a whole other neighborhood.
And they transferred 150,000 square feet. And it equated to additional height for this new development. That is pictured on the
Right.
left. And just to give you an idea of kind of the locations. This side is Biscayne Boulevard property, the historic district. You have 195 here. 195 is here on this map, and you have
Right.
Coconut Grove all the way down. So
But it's still in the
So
same city.
Still in the same city, but it is far away and it just, in the city of Miami, it's not dependent on being neighbors necessarily. It's the way that our code is written to allow transfers in a lot of different locations throughout the city of Fort Lauderdale. So that was,
Okay,
Do you know how many they've done in Miami? They have this program, because
Yeah.
that was 10 years ago. So-
right, so they probably have done, I mean, the floor area, the square footage ones, I don't know, at least 50 or 60, maybe more, and then they added the ability to transfer density a few years ago, so they've had some additional,
I hadn't realized there's so many.
there were quite a few at one point in time. So a lot of transfers occurred from properties, especially along Biscayne Boulevard to properties in Edgewater,
Right,
where you see
now I understand the
an increased
development.
skyline, yeah,
Okay,
okay, and
thank you. So,
then I'll let the board discuss.
wait, I think we have some, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say,
Before the board, I was gonna go to the public. We have a member of the public who wishes to speak.
Yes, good evening, Steve Tilbrook with Abraham Law Firm. How are you? Thank you for your service. Served on this board many years ago. Appreciate the hard work you're doing. I'm just here on behalf of Jay Adams. Jay Adams owns Urban North, Progresso Village, and several other commercial historic properties in Fort Lauderdale. He is in the middle of a transaction right now to sell, transfer, and development rights to a developer. He's the only one that's gone through that process. It's been a long, cumbersome process. And as you may have seen in Jay's email, it's, he understands that the goal right now is to enhance this program, to make it easier, more efficient, and a better functioning program in Fort Lauderdale. He understands that's the charge that the board made to staff and to the commission, and the commission reinforced. It was his expectation that there would be a professional consultant brought in to do a holistic review of the program to really try to make it work better. And the concern he has and that we have is that the ordinance rewrite doesn't clearly meet those objectives to make it a better, more efficient, easier program. It's his opinion that it's a complex program. It's a complicated, costly process, and it could be better. And so the request is to actually meet with staff and maybe a consultant to do a holistic look at this program, to find a way to make it work better. And to make it less cumbersome, because most of the commercial properties in Fort Lauderdale that are historic are small. These are not buildings that are gonna have 150, 200,000 square feet transfer. We're talking 10 to 20 to maybe 50,000 square feet. And there's a lot of steps in the process. It's somewhat confusing. There's a lot of changes in this ordinance that are confusing. And I frankly haven't had a chance to go through it all and make sure I understand it. I don't know whether you have or not. I know we just got this on Thursday. You may have gotten it beforehand. This may not be the first time it's been before you. Our request is, and I'm here to listen. I don't have a lot to participate. Jay made some comments about increasing some timeframes that are in the ordinance. Very stringent timeframe. There's a lot of steps. One suggestion I have is, it may not need to be in the ordinance, but can somebody do like a flow chart to show how this is supposed to work? Because there's a lot of moving parts here. And I think a flow chart would be helpful, even if it's not part of the ordinance, just to understand
For
the
understanding.
steps. What's the first step? What's the second step? How is it supposed to work? And how long is this really intended to take? And are there steps that really aren't necessary? Are there conditions that aren't really necessary for Fort Lauderdale? And maybe this is based upon Miami's ordinance. I don't really know. But we think that there's an opportunity now, while we're doing the ordinance, to try and make it a better program, and we'd like to participate in that process.
Thank you. So just clarify your request is that we defer this item, so.
Yeah, it's not actually on your agenda, so I don't know if referral is necessary, but that we continue the conversation to next month. And in the meantime, actually reach out to the regulated community and have meetings about the process, right? It's not really, this is great to present it to Historic Preservation Board, but it's hard to rewrite an ordinance and to, in a board meeting. It's gonna be a little easier in a workshop setting where you can get a flow chart, you can talk across the table about ideas, ways to make it better, and maybe we find a few.
Okay, thank you. To that end, I wanted to ask, one moment, I wanted to ask Tricia, what was I gonna ask her? What happened to hiring an outside consultant?
So the board had made a communication to obtain a consultant to look at best practices in Broward County. There are no other TDR programs in Broward County that we can identify. We've looked and we don't see any.
Why does it have to be in Broward County?
That was the specification.
Well,
from
that's what I'm
board.
asking the board.
And I think it did come from Shari in a way, because there are certain parameters that are outlined within the Broward County Land Use Plan that specify certain things that we have to do within our TDR ordinance within Broward County, here, a municipality here. We also have specific regulations regarding land use in general and the use of units within.
But we're not talking about the law, we're talking about the process.
Well, the law dictates our process.
Right.
And what we have to require as part of that.
So what I
And-
don't understand, I'm
But
sorry.
when
to
it went
interrupt.
to the city commission, to my knowledge, and I was there.
Yeah.
I do not recall them giving us direction or funding to hire a consultant.
Because my concern is, I don't know how everyone else on the board feels. I'm certainly not an expert in zoning law. And this is quite complicated. I would like, if we're not gonna be able to hire an outside consultant, I'd like to see us bring in outside people who've had experience, not only in Broward, but Miami Beach. I'm just saying I know there's different laws and different regulations, but we're talking about the process and, the approvals, and I think there's a lot of questions here. I read the email from Jay Adams, and he and you, Steve, were here a number of months ago when we started talking about this, right?
Yes.
So, but I think now that it's become much more real in terms of an ordinance, and board, please feel free to weigh in. That was
And
my
after
concern.
the communication to the city commission, myself and the development or the urban design and planning manager did meet with Mr. Tilbrook and Mr. Adams and had a discussion.
You have met with them,
We met with them in January,
okay?
and at that time, they did say that they would bring back some recommendations, but we didn't receive
Okay.
any. And in the meantime, we did work on some adjustments to the ordinance that were also requested to help alleviate some of the restrictions with the number of units being transferred. So that's what this addresses.
So would it be worthwhile to meet with the
We can
two of them
certainly-
again, now that we have
certainly
a
meet with
draft
them.
ordinance?
Yes, we can certainly set that up and have that discussion. This was initially sent around to several different land use attorneys in August, including Mr. Tilbrook and Jay, for their review. So we hadn't received any comments until today, like
Okay.
specific comments. We did hear from Jay at the last meeting requesting the deferral and requesting, us to take a look at the time limits placed on the certificate of eligibility.
Okay. So. I mean, I feel we should have you two meet.
Yeah. we
But I'm
can-
just wondering if there are other people. Are there other people who would be good to meet with? And I guess. Steve, I don't know if your firm in Miami has people who have done something like this.
I can reach out to them. You know, Robert Lockery represents the buyer in the transaction that we're working on. Perhaps he and his office
Sure.
could participate in the process from a buyer's perspective. We're representing the seller. There's the buyer side and, you know,
Okay,
we're open to ideas. Hey, you know, perhaps there could be better communication, but we like to think big about, making this better. So I think there's time and opportunity. We're willing to do it and, we look forward to getting together.
Yeah, I think hearing from buyer's perspective is pretty crucial. because
absolutely.
If you don't have a buyer.
I'd rather
benefit
hear from
that,
both
right.
ends, yeah.
We did hear from a member of Lockery and Chaka's law firm last week about a comment that was actually incorporated into the latest draft that was sent around. The latest draft that was sent around just had 2 minor edits on 2 pages that were highlighted in green. And it was just making sure that it was clear as far as what is considered an unsafe structure and what considers qualified for demolition. So those are the 2 things that were added towards the end of last week. And that was looked at further and examined further because of a comment that was received by Lockery's
Lockery, yes.
law
Okay.
firm.
Just let's have Maggie speak, since I didn't want to forget about you.
And you covered everything I was gonna say, except I just wanted to emphasize that, because of the complicatedness of it, I know that, Jay's made quite an investment, and I hope that simplifying this, it will make it so, because we should really try to not make it expensive for people. And he's very passionate about this, and I agree. I think this is a huge deal. It's important to make sure we make it right, because, it can save a lot of historic.
Okay, thank you.
And we do have a video available on our website that does walk through the different steps of the program.
Okay,
And that's been online for a couple of years now.
would the idea of a flow chart? I mean, it sounds like it would be
Yeah, we can
helpful,
have a
because I tried to read through that and I'm not an attorney and my eyes were crossing.
Yeah,
Well, that presentation you gave last month, is that online or can you put that
that
online?
is essentially the video. So I represented the video to you.
Because that
guys
was helpful.
Yeah.
To explain some of the stuff. So
Right.
if you can put a flow chart in that presentation.
We
so
can just
that-
extract pieces of the presentation,
Perfect, okay.
a static image.
So you're gonna meet with them before the next meeting, so we'll have the benefit of
We will,
your knowledge
Well,
from the
I
meeting.
wouldn't say that.
No?
It take time to
I'm
arrange
asking.
a meeting.
Well, it's a month. Yeah,
Sounds like you.
See you-
Reckon of grief for
Everybody's
Jay.
available.
start with one, yeah.
So it sounds like we need to postpone this. A recommendation or approval for the commissioners, or those planning and zoning at this point. Doesn't do any good,
Well, I
not
think
have
we
something,
need more input.
right, because, I mean, as we're pointing out. The wording on the ordinance gets very confusing and complicated. And so it doesn't really help us understand what we're recommending to planning and zoning.
Right.
When it's,
So is the action item would be to recommend to planning and zoning to defer this?
no, like, if you want to just continue the
The discussion.
conversation, then you would make a motion to defer it or to place it on the following.
So we can make a motion to continue the discussion at the next meeting.
Uh-huh.
And if you haven't had a chance to meet with everyone, you'll let us know that.
We can.
Yeah, and if the board also has specific, requests as part of it, like I said, there's certain things that we have to have the way they are.
Right,
That's
I
not gonna
understand.
be flexible.
But you're gonna tell us that
Yeah.
as we talk.
And part of it is really, just.
I'm just concerned that we're not experts in this. And we're being called upon to decide like experts. That's
Well,
my concern.
I don't think we're really deciding anything, right? We're just giving a communication to.
Well, to the city commission that we think it's okay or it's not okay.
Well, if I can weigh in a little bit on the process,
Please.
so you have unique expertise on this historic preservation board with regards to historic designation, historic properties and preservation of historic properties. The Planning and zoning board is the board that works as the local planning agency for the city and is supposed to be tasked with the planning expertise understanding the land use plan, the comp plan, making sure that everything is, comports with that. Those are the elements that staff has, kind of mentioned needs the local expertise with regards to transfer of development rights because of the unique structure of the Broward County, planning, construction scheme. But what your task is with regards to reviewing it is with regards to whether or not this adequately protects historic properties. And I don't think that you're being asked to go outside of your scope of expertise or the task that you've been appointed to this board to do. That is the task of the planning and zoning board to kind of consider the other aspects of this.
Okay,
And there
Oh.
are several aspects that are ingrained in the ordinance that like ensure the protection of the historic property, because that is the basis of this program.
And you don't want somebody to sell the rights and the property's dilapidated that you're
No.
gonna tear it down. So you kind of have to make sure that those are built into the transfer.
Chair, would you entertain another public comment?
we do?
Would you?
Please jump up. And you have to introduce yourself yet again.
You don't have to swear.
Michaela Condo, Broward Trust for Historic Preservation, and it's a question, and it's more about the timeline aspect of it, Tricia. I just am trying to understand, does the timeline fall into the legal obligation that you spoke to?
Timeline for adoption of the amendment or?
No, the timeline in terms of the TDR rights, because one of Jay's concerns was that the timelines are too stringent for the actual.
Well, there's a certificate of eligibility that's issued for historic properties when they apply to have their development rights calculated. And that has an expiration date of 18 months.
So,
And that falls in line with our other expiration. dates.
Well, this is,
18 months is long enough for him?
Yeah.
well, this is one of the things that needs to be discussed, if there's a question about it, that's all.
Say again?
Well, this is one of the items that needs to be discussed further, I
Yeah,
think with Jay and whomever, just to
But it
see
is
what their opinion is.
eligible for renewal and
So
Jay
it's
has
not
applied
so-
for renewal on one of those already.
So the consideration,
that's where the financial.
the consideration on the planning side is that there are entitlements that the development community obtains from the city and uses various things to hold up those entitlements. So we have development units that sit parallel with properties that, no disrespect, this is over, land use attorneys, very effectively obtain for their clients. And the idea here, and not necessarily a historic concept, but on the development concept, is if we prove something, our code requires you to get it off the ground and built. And there are a lot of projects in here that aren't built. So the concern with regards to, in the context of the historic preservation, is, individuals obtaining these rights and not doing anything. This whole thing for some years.
Now, the individuals, meaning the purchaser. Not the seller.
That's the problem, with the purchaser in this transaction.
Yeah, so
That the seller doesn't have control over, so it is not the same as a pure.
That's why he needs to hear from both.
Yeah. So I think with some conversation, we can come to a resolution and accept and on some of these issues. Some we may not be able to, but we'd like to have an opportunity to have.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So we need a motion to continue the discussion.
I'll make a motion to continue the discussion rather than do it to the next meeting, I think we leave it open so that depending on schedules, when it works for Tricia,
Can we leave it open,
or do we have to give it?
or can we leave it up to Tricia?
Well, I think
don't know the other.
We set it for next time and then change it.
Yeah, you can keep
Are you
postponing
requesting
it, but
staff to bring it back
I would say,
after the?
You wanna give it 2 months?
yeah, I would say suggest doing it in December rather than
Okay.
next month. So give them
So-
time to arrange their meeting
So
and talk to about the subject to
Yep.
And
concern.
perhaps they
I'll
may
make a
need more than
motion.
one meeting.
I'll make a motion to defer this item, the discussion on this item until the December meeting.
Second. Let's go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
you.
I know,
Thanks for calling.
Or 30 days in.
because we're talking about planning and zoning at this point, I would like to extend that conversation during that meeting, I guess, to include other issues that we can recommend to planning and zoning for historic properties.
Well, let's keep that as a separate issue. This is,
All right,
let's
we
not
can,
muddy the waters,
well, I wanna
but I know they're
discuss
related.
other things
Yeah.
that relate to particularly tax incentives, because there's a 20% tax incentive for income producing properties. And I think that's a significant issue for properties like this that could be utilized for investing in them and preserving them rather than tearing them down.
Okay.
So I don't know if we can have that added to that same meeting, or if we need to make another motion for that to happen, to talk further about.
I don't think, do we
Issues
need a
before planning.
motion for a discussion on them?
If you want it on the agenda,
Okay,
We want to officially get, so that planning and zoning shows up or somebody shows up related to that.
well,
related
Yeah.
to.
Well, you know, like, you're with urban planning, so, you know, that would be an important person, I'm assuming, to have. So that's why I'm trying to tag it on to that further discussion in December.
What would they be responding to specifically?
Well, some of the things that I even brought up tonight, like this property is only 750 square feet. So generally ADUs are maximum at 600 square feet. In this case, this house could have been an accessory dwelling unit on a property and allow them to further develop the site so that there could be a larger piece of larger single family home on it. And that property could have been their home office or, you know, a facility for them to use for income producing. So it's having more flexibility with that on planning and zoning rather than being restricted to,
Well, the zoning district that that property is located in does allow for cluster development, which generally allows for 2-unit structures, two or more 2-unit property
right?
on the same lot. In another instance, there
So that
was,
could be more than the 600 square feet if there's a second unit.
yeah, but the problem is the lot is
the lot
very
is so
tiny,
small.
Right.
and so there's not a whole lot that
Right,
can be
because-
done with it.
Would they still need the same setbacks and stuff, you know, that being 5 feet or 10 feet or whatever from the other structure on the same lot?
And we do have setback waivers for contributing structures.
Because the way I read some of the things for the RMM and RMLs are that they're conditional rather than it being automatic for any contributing property. And that's what I'm trying to do is get this waiver for any contributing property in the city of Fort Lauderdale, contributing or historic property. So Jay's property could be an example that you get some of those things that are automatically available to them to have some of these variances that are not necessarily available to the rest of residents in the city of Fort Lauderdale. So it's having that discussion is really what I'm trying to explore.
But I still go back to, that's a slightly different discussion than we're talking about with the transfer of development, right?
Of
I know
course.
it includes that, but they're two separate items.
Of course.
Okay, I thought you were mixing them
No, I'm
together.
just saying that because they're related to
Okay.
planning and zoning, because that was
Okay.
related to planning and zoning. This is also related to it,
Okay,
because you're making a recommendation.
so
to the
what's
planning
your,
and zoning
what's your
board
recommendation for a discussion?
Was to put it on the agenda, or we can just, you know, say, we don't necessarily need to add it to the agenda, I guess, but I wanted to have that further discussion. Which we can do in December.
No, you have to put it on the discussion. On the
No, because she
agenda.
just said we didn't need to. We could have it at a later point, but on the agenda.
If you'd
What?
like to have it on the agenda, you need a motion.
Okay,
Or you
Yeah.
or you can bring it up anytime you want to talk about it, I guess. Is
Yeah.
that what you're suggesting?
Can you discuss it without it being on the agenda?
And
You can,
have
you
a
can always
discussion.
discuss items that are not on the agenda, it's preferred that. If it's a significant item that you want public input on, that it be placed on the agenda.
Okay,
meaning from relevant staff, that's why,
Right.
again, I'm trying to bringing it up. So, yeah, I'll make a motion then, that we add further discussion to make recommendations to planning and zoning at the next historic preservation board meeting.
Or in December?
what
So
time,
I'm not,
Well,
what
November,
are we recommending?
so I'm a bit, planning and So we have planning and zoning board as an advisory board that serves as a local planning agency and other cities call their planning staff, planning and zoning, but here it's development services department. Are you speaking with regards to our professional planning staff or a advisory board that's gonna be, that reviews code changes and?
Well, I'm referring to us having a discussion about zoning issues that affect historic properties.
Okay,
So shouldn't that be
let that be,
staff?
that's,
Shouldn't that be staff?
no, you all can have that discussion. If you're desiring to have staff here, you have to make that a communication.
Right.
You can't direct staff, as an advisory board to the city commission. But I think that's a good place to start with regards to a discussion.
Which is where? With
Well,
staff? Who
no,
are you-
that you as a board discuss. these
Oh, yeah, we should discuss it. But I still feel like the people who sit on the planning and zoning board aren't necessarily experts in that field. They're laymen coming from all different fields. So I would rather listen to staff, I think, who are experts in planning and zoning.
Which is why if
Yeah.
you put it on the agenda, somebody from staff can
Right.
show up to
Well,
discuss that.
exactly. Okay.
That's the point of putting it on the
But I think
agenda.
he's saying we can't direct staff to do something without.
Well, it's
doing-
up to them. It's helpful if they show up, but
You can put it on.
We can
the agenda
ask
for
and invite them
discussion,
to
and we
come,
understand what's on the agenda.
All right, so you make the motion or?
I just
So-
want to temper your expectations.
Yeah. I just
What
want
did you
to,
say? What did you say,
Impossible.
Dwayne?
Temper your
No,
expectations.
before that.
That you can put it on the agenda for
Okay.
discussion.
Okay.
so it's really zoning related issues within Sailboat Bend. It's-
well, as I said, it can extend to any historic property,
Okay.
but relating to historic preservation.
Okay.
Was it seconded?
Is there a second to that?
Second,
All in favor?
everybody deserves. it.
Everybody,
Yes.
okay, the motion carries. And the last thing, Tricia, you wanted to talk about this flyer for Sailboat Bend?
So we have an interactive open house that will be held on October 22nd for the Sailboat Bend Historic District Vision Plan. And we have engaged with a consultant, Dover Cole, who will be helping us to create a vision plan and run the open house. And they've been actively working with us to collect feedback from the district commissioner. And we met with the neighborhood last week and did a walking tour and got a lot of great feedback from them. And we wanted to bring it to the Historic Preservation Board and just ask, well, first give you an introduction to the fact we're doing this project. But also ask if there's anything that you would like for us to focus on as we move forward in the development of this project. So, just to give you kind of an overview of some of the things that we're looking at and some of our goals of this project is to look at ways we could update the existing code, handle the streetscape and any improvements of streetscape within the Sailboat Bend Historic District, improved access to the neighborhood, highlight parks, and then improve connections between Sailboat Bend and the adjacent neighborhood. So tonight we're joined with Jackie Del Arca from Dover Cole. So she's one of the consultants that's working with us. I'm not sure if Jackie has anything. that
I'm
you'd
not
like
saying
to
this for Jackie's benefit, but they are excellent.
That's wonderful. Well, nice meeting everyone. Like Trisha was saying, my name is Jackie Del Arca. I work with Dover Cole and Partners, and we've been actively meeting with Trisha and the Civic Association of Sailboat Bend and just having conversations about what could be part of this vision plan. And based on conversations like the one of today, we just want to make sure that we have your input as well. If you have any ideas or things that we should take into consideration that we should be made aware, we would be happy to hear any of your comments. And again, like Trisha was saying, we have the open house on the 22nd, which we will be there as well. And we'd love to have more conversations in person. But if there are any comments, we would appreciate those and keep those for us. So
So
Thank you.
if the streetscape, did that like include draining issues? Or is that more just like?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Sides.
we'll certainly be talking about resilience within the neighborhood and any efforts related to that. There are some planned efforts that are kind of in the works for this neighborhood, so. I think ultimately the report will probably highlight some of those actions that we know are coming. But, you know, they're gonna be thinking through a lot of different aspects of the neighborhood, collecting a lot of different feedback, trying to prioritize actions. And I think they've gathered a lot of intel already, and I think the open house will be very valuable as part of that. But, you know, there's a couple of questions that we kind of put together as far as trying to get input from you guys. So, one thing we wanted to ask was what you value most about Sailboat Bend and what you see as the, you know, the most attractive piece of that neighborhood. Why do people want to live there, and why is it important that we continue to highlight it? So if you have anything you want to share with us.
I was
You
planning,
guys live there.
I was planning to attend the meeting, so I'll give my feedback then.
Okay. Absolutely.
Yeah,
You can do
that makes more sense, yeah.
Okay,
I mean, I've
Yeah.
already submitted some information to him already, so.
But they should hear it from you.
but we wanted to give you the opportunity if you'd
Okay.
like to talk in this forum, but you can certainly attend the open house too, and we'll have several different interactive activities for different topics that you can share your feedback on.
Well, I think this flyer is helpful for residents within or businesses within the Sailboat Bend area. But I think that it'd be helpful if we can do a broader outreach as we're pointing out to the entire city, because if it's gonna be highlighted as an attribute for the city, other people might have some insights of what they would like to have for this type of environment or this type of community in the city. So feedback from other people in the city would be helpful.
Yeah, and this was shared with everybody, like throughout the city. It's been broadcast through different networks that our communication department has. It'll be posted on our social media accounts multiple times.
I
leading
mean,
to
like
the event.
History Fort Lauderdale and
Yeah.
Stranahan House, for anybody who's kind of going through those are helpful.
Yeah, so, we're definitely trying to get the word out as best as possible. We will be putting up signs in the neighborhood, but we'll probably wait until later this week, so they don't get wet and blown away. We were planning to do it today.
No, wait till
We
the
thought
after
better,
that.
yeah.
So we need a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Jackie.
Of course, we'll see some of you there.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
That was there. Sorry. Did you make the
Yes,
motion?
motion to adjourn.
Second? Oh,
I'll
we're
second it.
adjourned.